Okay, we are live right now from the jungle, Orlando, Florida. Dave the Wave, fresh locked-in tee, fresh hair.
Looks pretty good today, actually. I was
never
happy
seen
with
your
it.
socks before. You always have nice kicks on. I see Dave's socks. And we have the pleasure of Felicia Spencer giving us her time in her busy schedule. You're a teacher as well as a beast of a fighter. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And guys, we're live on Facebook. If you're listening to the podcast, you like the page, Locked In with 2 N's, and you can join the community. We put up debates of the day every day. It could be NBA, football, baseball, whatever it is. So make sure you check out our Facebook page. For our live viewers, thank you for joining. Make sure you share, like it. But let's get right to the nitty-gritty. We're here.
Right.
You have a big title fight on the way. How does it feel that it's close, and this is a big fight for you? Is it pressure? Are you anxious? Are you nervous? What is your feelings right now?
I'm mostly excited, mostly focused also on, just training and, with everything going on in my training and my work. I don't, dwell on that day so much, but I know it's coming and I'm excited about it. And I'm just putting in all my energy into every moment of every day, just doing everything I can. So. Right.
And one thing, Dave and I on the way here, so we talk sports pretty much the entire time. And we're looking at the list of fighters that have competed in Invicta. And like you have Rose Namajunas, you have Cyborg, you have Amanda Nunes. You could argue the 3 best women's fighter in the UFC right now. So when you're fighting in such a well-established organization, how does it feel that you're competing against the best in the world?
It feels great. The Invicta Featherweight Title is the pinnacle for me. It's like, I know there's a UFC division. It's very small. So Invicta has been the breeding ground for women's MMA, and especially for those who have stepped up to the UFC. So I'm at the doorstep, and, I'm not looking ahead. And I'm, just being involved with Invicta has been a blessing. And their title is the one that I want. That's the pinnacle for me. That's really be the most, prized possession for me is having that belt.
And we were just talking about that too, how off air, as soon as someone wins that title, they go right away into usually a big UFC fight right away. I was talking about this. Are you, like, UFC to me is Coke or McDonald's, right? They're the headliner, they're the main event. But now there's so much going on. PFL, there's talking about a women's tournament with, $1 million on the line. That's really big. Bellator had a really good weekend last weekend, 2 big fights in a row. They have big tournaments. Is it just UFC or bust? Or if another company like PFL or Bellator says, hey, yeah, we'll give you a $500,000 fight deal. Is it like just, hey, I just want to do mixed martial arts, want to fight MMA and just provide for my family? Is that, or is it just UFC or bust?
Well, I'm always open to anything, and with with fighting with the women's divisions, and especially with the featherweight division, it changes so much, and it's hard to make a plan for where your next step is going to be. It might not even be part of the UFC. And we don't know what's going to happen with the division. UFC is every fighter's like dream, but at the same time, money talks, and I'd like to be able to, at least for a time, a short time in my life, just focus on fighting and not have a million other things on my plate to pay the bills and make a future for myself. It would be, I would always be open to anything. Yeah, like you said, Bellator has a great division. Yeah. PFL's doing it. So, yeah, I'm open to anything.
How do you feel about the women's landscape today? So you just said Invicta is pretty much the breeding ground when it comes to women's MMA, and obviously we went over the list as the who's who on the list. Is there one thing you would change, or something you truly like about the landscape today? Because if you would say 5 years from now, you have Ronda Rousey. That's a little further back, but you look at people like Ronda Rousey and even Gina Carano, people forget, paved the way for women's MMA. No one thought it would be as big as it is today. Where do you see it going in 5 years? Is it going up? Do you see it kind of stagnant, staying there? Where do you see the landscape?
I think it's always going up, and I'm really happy to be involved in this time of of women's MMA. I started training a long time ago, and I actually almost went pro like 6 years ago, and the laws changed and my fight got canceled, and then I had to have an amateur career first. So things kind of changed for me, and then it was really hard to get amateur fights. And I was a little frustrated about that for a long time because I was like, oh, I could have been a pro already. I could have skipped all this, But at the same time, now I look back, and if I would have started fighting, professionally then, I think I would have still done well, but
it was like a blessing.
Starting now is really nice. I get to be kind of the fresh face of my division, hopefully, and kind of think of it like that. And, just being now undefeated with 5 fights I feel like I'm not doing too bad. So I'm really happy that everything worked out the way it did.
And you said it. We're really good friends with Taylor White down there in Port Orange, Florida. She's actually fighting tomorrow night, Clash of the Titans 2. There's your plug, Mitchell Chamali. Why is it? We talk to her all the time, and she has such a hard problem getting fights. Like, that's her number one thing. She's not worried about training. She's not worried about boxing. She's not working about her ground game.
Or the actual fight.
Yeah, she doesn't care about the fight itself. It's getting the fights. Why is it because female MMA is, like, in a way so young, and you think 5 years from now will be a lot more easier to get fights for amateurs? Or is it just there's not a big group of female, flyweights or featherweights in the area?
I think it's a combination of things. Like you said, it's, the fewer the people involved, then, the harder it is to find people ready to fight. Also, when you're talented like Taylor, I know I've seen her fight, or like my fiance fights, just having a reputation makes it harder to get fights. And, when I was, ready to go pro and then I had to start being an amateur, I was already a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. I was, a 14-year Taekwondo black belt. It was just a long resume to come to for an amateur to come up and step up and fight, to fight me. So in a way, with losing my first amateur fight, and it was kind of, whatever, that sort of a decision fight, split decision loss, having an 0-1 record as an amateur made it a little easier for me to keep getting fights. But then after I started winning, it was a little harder to get fights again, so I had to travel more and go out of state to wrap up my amateur career, which is something that is more common now with the talented amateurs, like Megan Colley, or not Megan, that's Megan Anderson. Megan Colley here, my training partner at the gym, is going to Vegas. She's won a championship amateur belt in Vegas. So just it's becoming part of the amateur career to travel and go across the country.
Now, you said you and your fiance both fight. I find it interesting. We got to see Alex Nicholson and Hannah Goldie. She competed on Island Fights, and she had a spectacular performance. She won.
Main event, by the way. Yeah. Female main event.
Yeah, it was incredible to watch. And I find it interesting. So what is that like? If you feel like, of course, if you don't mind me asking, is it fun? Does it get stressful at times because they're like, hey, you shouldn't be eating that because like there's a certain diet you guys just grapple at home, and if you win, do you have bragging rights? Like, what is that like?
It's mostly fun. We can be bad together when we're not in camp and eat snacks. But it's nice to have that true understanding of what you're going through. And, when you're cutting weight or if you're just having, training a lot and the toll it takes on you, we understand each other and, like, what we're going through. And it's fun. We mess around, but we try to keep most of, like, the formal training in the gym so we can kind of relax at home. But it's kind of fun to both be on a level of have a lot of skill and kind of like test each other. So yeah, it can be fun.
Now you have obviously a big title fight coming up. How do you feel personally? Now, of course, I know you believe you're going to win and you have every right to believe it, but going into it, how do you feel you match up with your opponent? Like, honestly, if you look on paper or just from what you see watching her fight, how do you feel you match up with her?
On paper, she's got more experience, so that's always kind of, especially being up and coming, it's always kind of the knock on me that I don't have the experience on paper. Just, looking at her style, she's got a lot of pressure, she comes forward a lot, she's tough. But, like you said, nothing I haven't seen before, and her experience on paper doesn't really trump, I don't think, my experience just training and having a lifetime of martial arts is something that not a lot of people have. And, like I said, I don't see anything that she brings to the table that I can't, trump hers. So I'm excited. Yeah, I'm really excited to get in there.
Yeah, she has 2 losses on her record. She has a great record. I love the undefeated factor. There's just something about you going in the cage and you haven't felt that loss as a professional, and I think that's a huge advantage for you. She's felt 2 losses, and I know this sounds horrible or blunt, but like she knows how to lose. She has those 2 losses already, so I think you have a great advantage on that. It's November 16th, Oklahoma. I want to talk about that. You said about travel. Do you like that? I hear a lot of fighters, they would want to stay, if you're based out of here in Orlando, Florida, they want to stay as close as Florida as possible. Some fighters like the travel. It's like an away game for a football team. They build together. You fly out there. You have a little mini camp. You cut a little bit of weight, and then you kick ass that night. Do you like the travel part of the MMA game?
Yeah, it makes it, it's kind of a routine now. I've never fought in Orlando, so I've had my first 3 fights were in Florida, but ever since then I've been traveling, so it's kind of part of the routine. I would love to have an event in Orlando so that I could really, have that hometown feel and the crowd.
One day.
Yeah, maybe one day it'll happen. But I really don't mind. I do like the travel, and Invicta takes really good care of their athletes as far as getting them, to where we need to be. We stay at, somewhere comfortable, and, they provide, rides for us. So everything I need is, pretty much taken care of while I'm traveling, and I'm out there early enough to get settled, and, the weight cut is all accounted for. So, I like it, being able to see new places, and just, it's got its pros and cons, but it's definitely nice to be able to travel for free.
We talked about the Conor Khabib situation. We watched that fight, and I owe it to Mitchell Chmale, promoter of Combat Night. I was wrong. You were right. He had Khabib. I promised him I'd call him afterwards if he was right, and I didn't. So you were right. Khabib won.
Stuff happened after the fight. Usually we get to call people or text people, but there was more things that happened after that fight than even during the fight. It was just a crazy scene.
Yeah, I'm emotionally invested in certain fighters. Now, talking to you, and you're such a nice person, I'll be emotionally invested watching you fight. It's different than any other sport because you're fighting. You know what I mean? You can get hurt. You can hurt somebody, of course, like Taylor, Mike Anderson. Those people I get emotionally invested. There's very few people I don't know who I am emotionally invested with. So when I don't know them and I feel connected with them. Connor's my guy. So I was starting to walk out of the house when we watched it at your house, and I'm like, what is going on over there? So then I ran back into the room and watched it. But anyway, back to my point. I digress a little bit. It's different for you watching fights than it is for me because I'm not going to fight Khabib or Conor. But when you watch these fights and you're watching women's MMA, it's almost like you're scouting in a way because I'm not trying to get you to look past your fight now, but Dave and I always say if you have a professional outlook on things and you're just smart, which you clearly are, you pretty much have a great path to success. So when you watch these fighters, do you keep mental notes in your head and I think I match up with, just for argument's sake, just Holly Holmes. I think I match up well with her, or Rose. Do you do that when you watch it, or do you try to sit back and enjoy it?
I definitely, when I'm watching someone in my division, see what they're doing, see how I match up. I always think I match up well with anybody. But, and watching people that aren't in my division or the men's divisions, I enjoy the fights, but I'm always looking at what techniques they're bringing, what their, game plans are when they're facing different styles. Like we were talking about, styles make fights, striker versus grappler. What are they, what is their defense going to look like if they're not able to implement their game plan? What are they going to do now? So I'm kind of looking at their strategy and what techniques they bring. And of course it's fun, to watch them, but there's fewer fights that are in my division. So most of the time when I'm watching fights, it's kind of just seeing the strategy that other people are bringing and seeing where it goes.
In your division, so you'd be fighting a Cyborg possibly, or an Amanda Nunes who's fighting her now in the super fight. We had the pleasure to speak to Amanda Nunes. How do you see that fight going? Personally, I have to ask you now that we're talking about it, because that's arguably the 2 best women in the sport right now, besides yourself, of course.
Yeah.
And they're fighting.
I was going to say, you got to give Felicia that
of
fight.
Course. I'm Felicia all day. But how do you see that fight going? Because Cyborg obviously is aggressive, move forward, I'm going to take your head off. And she usually overwhelms people with her power and her size. But Amanda does the same thing as well, and she seems to be maybe a little bit more technical, but she's never fought anyone like Cyborg. Kind of vice versa. How do you see that fight going?
That's a really tough one. And like you said, Amanda's a big girl too. They're both I don't think anyone's really going to have a big size advantage. They're aggressive. I'm not really sure how that one's going to go. I wish I could give a better answer.
Yeah,
I'd have to probably lean Cyborg because she's the champ, and coming up, I would assume maybe there might be a little size advantage. But like you said, Cyborg's been showing more patience in her most recent fights, and they're not ending in the first 15 seconds or anything. Yeah. So I see more and more technique coming from Cyborg.
Which is scary, by the way.
Which is also nice because, then, without the big flurry, it's actually, I think, better for people who are more technical to face her because once the flurry is over, you're still there. And if your technique trumps hers, then guess who wins? Yeah. So that's, it's always nice to see what she's bringing to the table and how to counter that. So I've always kind of had, anyone in your division that's the champ, you always look at like how you would beat them. So, Cyborg's been the champ of my division for a long time. So
really
I've had my eyes on her for a long time.
She's a dominant champion too. I was just going to ask you that kind of quick question about that featherweight. No matter what, if UFC said, yeah, we would want you, but can you come down to 135? Or do you love the featherweight? Don't want to mess around with it?
Yeah, I'm pretty much feeling comfortable with featherweight. I'm not saying it couldn't happen, but I do cut a decent amount of weight, and I feel like we're in a new era where people aren't so focused on just trying to cut to the very smallest they can be. Like Joanna was cutting to 115. It didn't really look healthy.
It didn't.
And, I'm not saying I couldn't physically get to 135 at some point.
But, sooner or later, your performance doesn't, your Joanna, to me, is better at 125.
Exactly. It's I feel comfortable. My body type's different. I'm dense, I think. I'm not sure. But, yeah, I definitely, I'm a bigger body type. And I feel comfortable. I feel healthy right now. And I don't think I would feel the same if I had to always, all year long eat egg whites and broccoli all year. That would be miserable. So yes. I can do it for the fight camp, But, I think I feel good. So I'd rather feel good than featherweight. Yeah, exactly.
I'm one of those that it's pro more weight classes. Now, honestly, this is no shot at boxing, but it kind of is at the same time. I think it got a little confusing when you have super flyweight, super this, and it's just too much because then the belts start to lose value. But I do feel like kind of what you're saying. I don't like to see a fighter unhealthy for one, and then you don't have the best performance if you're so drained. I think there should be a weight class almost every 10 pounds. I think there's a 165-pound division for the men's or 175 and 185. This way you don't have to see the fighters being so unhealthy. And there's such great competition in the sport. You're still going to have value with those belts.
Yeah.
But for women's, one thing when Dave and I notice is most fighters say, and again, Khabib showed it, wrestling is the biggest. Well, it's obviously debate and up for discussion, but it's probably one of the most valuable traits you can have as a fighter to be able to dictate whether it's standing or going on the ground. How do you feel that implements into your game, or just when you fight someone, having the wrestling advantage? Is it really that big of a factor to you? Be like, wow, I could take this girl down anytime I want. Would you say that's probably the most valuable, being able to dictate where it goes?
Yeah, I think that's a huge part of it. And a lot of my wins have come on the ground, and I'm really comfortable there. I mean, I started training, with stand-up styles, traditional martial arts, but jiu-jitsu I think is really kind of where I find the most success. I feel really comfortable being there on the ground, and the wrestling, it's different in MMA than in traditional, college wrestling or something, because you have a cage, and I feel like, especially at our gym, we train a lot on the cage and how to work from it, which is not something a lot of people have done yet. I know most gyms probably have a cage wall or something, but to really focus on that aspect of the fight is also something kind of new. But yeah, dictating whether it's close range, far, up or down is half the battle. Yeah. So.
Yeah, MMA wrestling is completely different, like you said, than just traditional wrestling, because you're also getting punched as well.
Yeah.
But
or kicked.
Yeah, or kicked. But when we were watching some of your fights, you are extremely talented in the scrambles, and you're able to transition very well. Where we watched one time, so somebody was on top of you, and you scrambled, and then you have full mount on them. So I don't know if that's instinct. Is that something, like you said, is that something you drill in camp with your coaching staff and your teammates, or is that something you kind of just flow with? I don't.
It's kind of just a history, mat time. Right. I've been there thousands of times. I know, even if I get stuck on the bottom, I'm not panicked. I know what to do. I know how to protect myself, and I'm not in a rush. I feel like now I've gotten really comfortable with not being rushed to improve position or to get that strike that I want or to get that whatever I want. I'm more patient. And I think back to one of my amateur fights where I made a mistake and she took my back and she had a choke. And I was just very cognizant to think, well, I know I've been here a million times and, it's all right. So I gave up mount to get out of the choke. So I was going to another bad position, but slowly improving. And then,
right.
and then I ended up winning the fight. So it was just, I feel comfortable even in a bad position to work out of it. And I know, especially with, everyone I face, I don't think anyone that I fight is going to have anything I haven't seen before, because I'm training with some killers and some, I train with guys, I train with girls, I train with people who specialize in boxing and wrestling, traditional wrestling, judo, jiu-jitsu. I have every skill level from all over the world. I've trained with them, and I feel really comfortable with having that, in my arsenal, and just I feel comfortable in a fight because I don't think anyone's going to bring something I haven't seen.
That's awesome. Talking about the cage, we're here live at the Jungle, Orlando, Florida. What a beautiful facility. This is our second time here. We were here with Seth last time. Beautiful cage here, great mats. Definitely, talk about the gym, plug away, any kind of classes, addresses, phone numbers. We want to bring as many people as we can here to the Jungle for you. Absolutely stunning facility. We love it.
Yeah, thank you. It's really evolved into something special. It's here in Orlando, East Colonial, right across from Publix.
Pub sub.
Great chicken tender sub. Chicken tender subs there are $4.99 usually. Great sub.
Yeah. And I can't thank my team enough. Without the coaches and the team that surround me, I wouldn't be where I am. I have some great sponsors if I can plug them too.
Absolutely. Other Side Apparel?
Yeah, the Other Side Apparel is a local up-and-coming brand. Actually, the founder trains here at the gym. She's super excited. She's bringing some really cool things to the table. I'm not sure if I can really tell much about it. Nothing's for sale yet, but I'm trying out some really cool things, like some hand wraps that I've never seen before. Also, a longtime sponsor from out in the Midwest, Lucas Wine and Spirits. I can't thank them enough for helping me with my training camps since the beginning. And out in Lincoln, Illinois, got the Idle Hour also helping me out today, a local family business. And then just, everyone that's supporting me, media, can't thank you guys enough for caring and taking the time to talk to us. And
absolutely.
Put it out there. So, watch Invicta FC. November 16th.
November 16th.
I want to brag about you just very quickly before we end it. You're a teacher as well. And I don't think teachers get the credit they deserve some of the times, because without them, none of us would be educated.
I wouldn't be as smart as I am without teachers.
I mean, you'd just be good looking. But so
Thank God for that.
Seriously, that's amazing that you're a teacher and you're a fighter. And like I said to you, I'm pretty sure you're one of the very few teachers that can beat up all their students probably at the same time. So I just want to say hats off to you, because that's incredible to do both. That really is.
Thank you. That's awesome.
And you do math, of all things. Math is hard. Come
on.
I
love math, though. I'm a math guy. I'm a numbers guy.
It's patterns. Guy. It's all part of fighting, too.
When there becomes more letters than numbers, that's where I'm like, okay, I thought I'm doing math.
Yeah.
But no, I get it.
And it's like pi. It's like a 3.14. I don't know.
I like the quadratic formula because I know what to plug in. I like that. See, look at that.
There you go. There you go.
Wow, that's locked in math.
Part of what I do, yeah.
But seriously, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And also, just to plug our kids program here at the Jungle, I'm part of the instructors that teach that, and we, from 4 to 12-year-old kids in here having fun, learning how to defend themselves. And I always focus on the team aspect and just growing as a person. It's something I'm really passionate about. Even with my math teaching, I focus a lot on people being the best they can be and just figuring out their life, and being good to each other. So it's called Little Gorillas program. So all these little gorillas running around are a big part of, my life also. So
very cool, very cool. Maybe the last question. So you like walking out to Queen songs?
I do. It's funny. People ask me sometimes why I pick a variety of those songs. It just kind of channels the right kind of energy for me. Honestly, I don't listen to them a lot outside of my walkout, I guess. But I think part of what it is a lot of people rage to come out to something really crazy and just get them all pumped up. But I don't want to feel that tension. It honestly makes me channeling, I feel like thinking about my dad a little bit because he's so chill, but tough at the same time. It just kind of puts me in a good zone and has the right kind of vibe for me to walk out and just be in my zone.
Absolutely.
Not so tense.
I
think crazy.
I have a good Queen walkout song to this fight coming up. I think they have something about "We Are the Champions."
Oh, yeah,
something about that.
That might be a good one.
Just throwing that out there.
Well, thank you so much, Felicia Spencer. You're on Instagram. You're on Facebook, right?
Yep. Phenom479 is my handle. My fight name, Phenom.
So give her a follow, support her, fighting for the Invicta Championship, and then who knows what's next for you. The sky is the limit. So thank you so much for giving us your time. The Jungle, we truly appreciate it. You're always welcome to get locked in. We love speaking to you. So thank you so much.
All right, thank you, guys.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we're signing off. Stay locked in, guys.